From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Napzok.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And I think I said about instead of about, like I was trying to figure out how far north my accent goes. It should stop at Minnesota, but it maybe went to Canada. I don't know. Anyway, this show is about questions. This is one of our questions of the Everything episode. Although this particular edition is it's questions about the Jedi. It's all questions about the Jedi. I love talking Jedi, so this will be a great episode for me, hopefully for everyone else. We also want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Sorry, we've said that so much, Ken, that I just... While I was reading that, this is what I was thinking. It's like, why am I reading this? I don't need to read this. I know this. And then my mind went to, what if when I'm like 98, these are my last words. This is what comes to my mind at my deathbed. And people are like, what's he talking about? The Android, the Kindle, or the MP3 player? What is he talking about? Those forgotten technologies. Anyway,
a sage predicting the future.
Your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. We are continuing to recommend The Living Force by John Jackson Miller. You can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for a free audiobook. We also have some announcements and some asks. Ken?
That's right. We'd like to ask you to consider subscribing to our YouTube page. In fact, we've set a goal there. We're trying to get to 9,000 subscriptions. That's right. And we're trying to get that by the Acolyte premiere. We are currently holding around 8,700, which we talked about earlier this week on the news show, was a number we thought we would not reach when we started leaning into YouTube a little bit ago. It's been a lot of fun. We know that a lot of you still listen on the podcast, but hey, maybe swing over, subscribe over there, help us reach our goal. Also, happy to announce that on Sunday, May 19th, 12 noon Pacific, we'll be celebrating the anniversary of The Phantom Menace, the actual release date anniversary. We'll be doing a live stream. Joseph and I will be on taking your questions and more. Jen, I know you're on a mission to Alderaan, and you're not going to be able to join the stream, but you'll be there in spirit. But that is Sunday, May 19th, right here on the YouTube channel, live Phantom Menace celebration.
I cannot wait. I will bring a peace orb. I'm joking. I'll have like a yoga ball. Anyway, are you both ready for some questions?
I am, but I'm thinking of, well, I do have some exercise balls. Maybe I'll paint one.
Maybe we should just hold up whatever balls we have at the end. Please.
Well,
I'll phrase that differently next time.
might be a little bit of a different rated YouTube stream, but not safe for advertisers.
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. Peace.
Anyway.
Only Force.
We clearly need to get through this episode. I'm already loopy. It is like 11 a.m. on Monday. Anyway, questions. Serious Jedi questions. This comes to us from James Pasqualucci, a kind patron on Patreon. Thank you, James. James says, Bright Sons, Joseph, Ken, and Jennifer. I have been thinking about how completely, amazingly, unfathomably spoiled we have been as Star Wars fans these past 10 years. Ken always says there's no better time to be a Star Wars fan, and I continue to say that with no shortage of fervor. However, I ask you to turn towards your inner Kylo Ren for a moment more for all the amazing Star Wars stories that have been gifted to us. Is there still a dream Star Wars story or project each of you desire that we have not yet gotten? For myself, I am still craving to see the Jedi Order fully restored. Ever since I was a kid and watched the end of Return of the Jedi, I would always breathe a sigh of relief that this great order I saw in the prequels could come back now that the Empire was gone. In the modern era, we have gotten great stories about Jedi post-Episode 6, but not of the Order itself back to what it was. I so hope we one day get the story set years after Episode 9, where the Jedi once again number in the thousands, have reclaimed the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and continue to protect light and life without the shadow of Palpatine ever threatening them again. But that is my dream story. What is yours? May the Force be with you. So I want to talk a little bit about James's dream story of seeing the Jedi in full flower. post episode 9, and then we can get onto some of our own dream stories, unless that is your dream story. So, Jennifer, how do you feel about wanting to see the Jedi in a full blossom again post episode 9, like James is talking about?
James, I am the same way. And when I was younger, that was all I thought about, was seeing Leia training to become a Jedi, which, we got a version of that obviously later on, but not like what I really wanted to see in the Jedi Order and my trash truck all together. Yeah, but I kind of feel like we might get that, right? With Rey and the movie with Rey. So I'm optimistic that it still is on the table. It can still happen, maybe just a little bit different than I imagined as a child.
Yeah. So you were imagining it long before the prequels, even, right? Because
yeah, that's what I thought. Well, obviously not what I thought the prequels would be about, but that's what I'd hoped. I thought that maybe one day George Lucas would, make another one, and Carrie Fisher would reprise her role as Leia. It's all I wanted to see. So we did get that, but a different version.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Ken, how do you feel about the desire that James is expressing to see the Jedi?
He's won me over. I'm not here to. I would never have fought against this idea, but he won me over with this post Return of the Jedi. Luke is celebrating while saying goodbye. The Ewoks are dancing, and it's like the Jedi Order's back, baby. And that's I know a lot of the appeal of the EU in that time. The Jedi Academy trilogy, which I did read, all that stuff. I am there for that joy. I do like where we get, and I don't want to turn this into a sequel trilogy conversation. I like where we end up. I like that some of the darkness is returned and that we have some, plot to deal with and conflict and all that kind of stuff. But what James is describing does speak to me. And I always go to that Attack of the Clones trailer moment where the Jedi are surrounded by, now we know, battle droids and Geonosians and everything. But that shot of a bunch of lightsabers in a circle, even though I remember that I first saw that trailer for Attack of the Clones, I was like, oh my God, that's it. The destruction of the Jedi. Order 66 was still 3 years away. But there was something so undeniably cool and uplifting in a weird way, even though it was a tough situation, of all those blades together at once. Right. And I don't know, this isn't just about blades coming out to fight, but it was the Jedi Order. For so long of my Star Wars life, it was Luke. And it was a myth, a legend. It was Kenobi, barely remembering the old days of 19 years ago. You can make all the jokes you want, but that's what it was, So I'm excited about this idea and excited to explore this in a more, full, robust way with what we think the Rey film could be. We want to make sure we let that film be what it needs to be, but I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think talk more about the Luke's Jedi Order when we get to Dream Stories, because that's kind of mine. But I think that what James is expressing hope for, I feel like reading the tea leaves of the little that we've been told about the new Jedi Order film, it feels like that is, what's going on. It's the way it was introduced at Celebration was, we're going to tell this story of the Jedi Order resurgent. It's coming back. And there are people in forces who do not want guardians of peace and justice running around the galaxy. And of course, they need a master. And that was the big setup for bringing Daisy Ridley out. So, of course, it could change a million times. And I think heroes should be questioned and they should have flaws and they should stumble. So I don't think it's going to necessarily just be endless cheerleading. But in a way, I feel like that era and that story and that leader figure in Rey is poised to be the sort of the true justice for the Jedi. Of like, there have been a lot of mistakes, there have been a lot of stumbles, but Rey's whole journey is learning about the past and knowing to be very critical and aware of what is good that can come forward and what is old that doesn't serve us anymore. I don't know that we're going to see her Jedi Order sitting on Coruscant. It might be a little bit more nomadic. It might be structured differently than the old Jedi Order. But I think, unlike the prequels or what we'll likely get in Acolyte, that is spending some time with the mistakes that this older sort of encrusted order made, this is a brand new order shaped by learning from the mistakes of the past. So I think it might be the new Jedi Order might really be what James is describing. And I think also, I know I've said this before, but I think in this context, it's important to me. Who knows? The movie might change, but the way that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy has talked about it in her own personal history, the kind of topics she's covered in documentary films, I really think the Jedi are going to be the heroes, and that there are powerful forces in the galaxy. And I don't even mean Sith. I mean like corporations, warlords of independent systems that sprung up and benefited from the chaos after the First Order War, who really don't like the idea of heroes running around defending the powerless, and maybe a more proactive Jedi Order that says the point of us is to use our power. That's the whole point. So if you're hurting somebody, we're going to go free them. And if there's a new Senate, we're not going to be in lockstep with them. We're going to do what we think is right. All of that leads me to think this is really going to be a story about the Jedi are the heroes. And, if the story is about powerful people who don't want the Jedi to exist, that positions them as the underdog, as the hero, not as the flawed institution that we've spent a lot of time seeing them as.
Yeah. You're talking too about some of the quote villains could be viewed as on the good team at this point, right? But then they're like, "Ooh, well, I don't know. I've been enjoying the success of this post First Order free market society. I've been loving exploiting the labor I have for profit. What are you going to say? What are these Jedi doing?
Yep. We're going to help people. We're going to free people. So I'm fascinated by that. Jennifer, when you imagine a new Jedi Order led by Rey, do you imagine it as like being back at the Jedi Temple, being very similar to the old Order, or do you imagine it more evolved and different?
I cannot imagine her having that kind of rigidity or those kind of like rituals of the past. I think that she just, because of her training and her life, it is going to be more nomadic. It is going to be more inclusive, welcoming, free form, right? Like if I think of it like dance, she's not a ballerina. She's more of an interpretive dancer. And so that's what I'm actually excited to see, because I think that it also makes it feel a little bit more real world. And it's going to be a nice contrast too to what we're going to be getting with the Acolyte, which kind of is going to be, portraying the Jedi as maybe not the good guys, right? Or the good ones. So it'll be nice to have that balance.
Yeah. So coming to their flaws. Yeah. I mean,
right.
Yeah. So, and as always, the movie could certainly change a lot, and I will adapt. But that's what I'm excited about, those possibilities. So let's talk about Dream Story. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
Well, sorry, but at the time of this recording, I think this is already like a week old internet news. So it travels at the speed of TikTok. But did you both see that like Galaxy's Edge, they have the new holocron with post Rise of Skywalker dialogue from Rey? I loved every bit of that. That was wonderful stuff. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Can we get our hands on that?
I thought it was. I thought it was great. I almost included it in the news show, but I was trying to keep it contained. And part of what I liked about it, there was a great article about it on Star Wars Newsnet that shares all the quotes. And I think what I liked about it is I feel like all of the things on that, like Lucasfilm, I think would be very mindful of what post Rise of Skywalker stuff are we putting out there. It was recorded a while back, is what the article said. So it isn't any sort of hint to this is what's in the script for the new Jedi Order film. But for me, a lot of it is sort of it's some of the themes and ideas of the sequel trilogy and of Rise of Skywalker explicitly spoken as theme statements by Rey.
Yes.
About, so I love Rise of Skywalker. So in particularly Rey's journey within it, where she ends up and what she chooses and why and how and all that. So to see that holocron, it's like, to me, it isn't controversial. That's what's in the movie. And I recognize that some people don't like the movie, but those are the things she learns and believes in the movie,
Right. Yeah. It's pretty explicit, pretty direct.
Yeah. I suggest people check it out if they wanted to Google that, and we'll see where the film goes. But Jennifer, going back to the question from James about dream stories, do you have other Star Wars dream stories?
I'd say the biggest one right now, besides the Ewok bounty hunters, which is obviously coming to life with the Lego special, would be focusing even more on the witches. So we are going to get that in the Acolyte, which is great. But I want to see. I'm not going to say a movie because I don't think that's realistic. I want to see a series just about the witches. I want to see the different covens. I want to see the Night Sisters. I want to see the Singing Mountain Coven clan. I want to see them riding rancors, and I want to learn more about, like, what are their beliefs? How do their values differ from one another? How do they defend those values? Maybe some are connected more to nature. I think that could be really cool. Maybe some speak to the animals. Like, I don't know. I just think it'd be a really fascinating way to kind of approach like this mystical element in Star Wars, where it's like magic, as opposed to just, but also can maybe connect it to the Force. And it could explore a different side, which, we're going to get in the Acolyte, but I think going even further.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of, it's not just Dathomir with the different groups that we've now seen in canon. I understand they were there in Legends, but now we've seen them in canon and a canon interpretation. But then we also have the Mother Anastasia's group, and like, is there some witch convention or different views on the Force? Is fascinating. Jennifer, how do you feel about the possibility of getting some Night Sister and possibly other clan covens perspective in the ongoing Thrawn story? Because we really left him at a cliffhanger where he has brought the Great Mothers back to Dathomir, and we know we're coming back to Thrawn. That's at some point somehow, and that's like an obvious conflict within it of whether the Great Mothers and Thrawn will stay aligned and what the Night Sisters truly want, and does it align with Thrawn, all that.
I have conflict with that. I don't know how I feel about how they were portrayed in Ahsoka. I really wrestle with it. I wrestle with live action Thrawn. I'll be open to it.
Yeah.
I love what I've seen with the Acolyte. That to me is the kind of style that I want to see. There's also like this kind of like scariness, that this mystery involved with the witches, which I felt was kind of lacking in the Ahsoka series for me personally. So I'm open. All right, I'm open.
Yeah, I'm very curious also with the quotes that this is just the beginning in terms of Asajj's return, of exactly when and where and how she's going to pop up, and if her story might be an entry point into your dream story of even more perspective of the Night Sisters and other clans. Ken, do you have a dream story or two?
You know what, James mentioned something I used to say a lot in the early days of ForceCenter, which is a good time to be a Star Wars fan. Still believe that, by the way, but don't say this much because it was on the old show I used to do, Spotlight Star Wars. So in keeping with that, going back, I'm gonna go back to what I used to say too much back then too. I want a pod race project. I want the rise of Chirpa. And, also some more Crimson Dawn storytelling. Shout out to our Resistance broadcast buddies, John and Lacey. Let's make Solo 2 happen. I don't know if that will ever get there, but we might get there in a roundabout kind of way with other projects, including the Lando film, or if it goes back to series, whatever it will be. Hopefully sees the light of day. Now, I do want to acknowledge there was a fan film that I have not watched, but I'm aware of in 2023 called Pod Racer. A very talented cinematographer and director, Brian Tang, made it. I know or used to work with one of the producers, Kristen Brancaccio, over at Screen Junkies. And I remember watching the trailer. It looked great. And it was the story of like a pod racer coming up, and it's kind of like in the circuit versus, the one Booth Eve kind of big galaxy fate changing race. So I've just been obsessed with pod race for years. I've talked about I want a pod race video game that's more of like a franchise management mode, all that stuff. I just think it's sport, it's myth, it's all of it kind of squished together. And I think people. Even people still have, that hard callus around their heart for the Phantom Menace. Still go, I don't know, pod race is pretty cool. That sound design is 10 out of 10 for me. I just saw a Threads debate this week. Someone posted I have my thoughts on how to fix the Phantom Menace because I just saw it and it's still horrible type of thought. This person I don't even think was older than the film's release, but whatever. And some of the next comment down below was like, that pod race is enough to make a 10 out of 10 for me. So I think the love is there, and I'd love to do it. And then I could work with Jen. Let's get the Rise of Chirpa going.
Yes, make it happen.
Yeah, the Empire burns away, and it's Tales of the Pod Racers next May the 4th. That would be very, very fun. But I do think there is something really untapped in that, like exploring kind of all the different genres and styles of Star Wars, and that idea of this sort of the sports and the illicit part of it. It's tied to the criminal underworld and betting and high stakes and who's going to win. And that would be a pretty fascinating take on Star Wars. Yeah. I got a couple of dream moments and that kind of thing. I would still love to see Ahsoka and Leia meet, in particular Ahsoka and Luke. We know they've met, and it would be great to see that at some point. But to see particularly Ahsoka and Leia meet would be fascinating. I'm so grateful that there is more Ahsoka storytelling, but I would like a little bit more clarity to fill in her timeline from stepping back into through the portal, the world between worlds, in being on the planet there with the temple, and where she spent her time during the Civil War and all that, the Galactic Civil War. I know many fans have theories. I don't think there's a solid canon answer. I think it's still a Dave Filoni t-shirt. Where was Ahsoka during blah, blah, blah. So that's a little thing. My biggest dream story is in animated series of Luke and Ben and a functioning Jedi Academy. I go on about this all the time. There's that comic book Rise of Kylo Ren that shows Luke's academy with trained Jedi Knights who are going around the galaxy on missions doing Jedi things. And I really think that there is Clone Wars animated series like room to tell the full story of Luke's Jedi Temple, Luke's Jedi School, Luke's Jedi Order. That it isn't just a story of failure. It is a story of tragedy. But just like the Clone Wars is a tragedy. What happens to Anakin is a tragedy. And yet we have years of victories, nuances. We have a whole era to explore. We have things that, we didn't think were there, like Anakin having an apprentice. I think there's so much room to tell a story that, if you were alive in 83 or you saw Return of the Jedi 3 months ago and you had that same, like, I want to see him rebuild the order that like James did. I think there is room to tell a little bit of that story. And I double checked on Wikipedia this morning. There isn't anything in the new era that does deal with the fate of the Jedi Temple. Obviously, Luke's school is not based on the Jedi Temple in Coruscant, but I would like to find out its fate in the New Republic era.
It's just an entire episode of Luke and Ben cataloging things they found there, right? Just making a spreadsheet about what's there.
I mean, just think of that as is the first episode of a Luke's Jedi Order episode where he takes a troubled Ben to this troubled spot steeped in history of it. Yeah, it was the Jedi Temple, but then it was the Imperial Palace, but then the Jedi had the hubris of building it on top of this old Sith shrine way back when, and this is this temple is a picture of the cycle, and can it be broken, and what mistakes were made. Like, it's so rich.
Yeah, we always kind of joke we don't want to give any ideas away for free around these parts, especially with you making films and all that kind of good stuff. But the animated series, it's been a ForceCenter favorite for years, because you can get into the politics and how the little bit of the Bloodlines novel vibes can like. There's a lot of ground to cover that a series could really explore. Yeah. I still get excited about the idea.
Rise of Kylo Ren is that 4-issue comic book is. I think if I could have one documentary about the Disney era of Star Wars, I would want a documentary about why does this one 4-issue comic book that entirely recontextualizes the fall of Luke's temple and how culpable Ben is, and canonizes more of the whispering in Ben's ear, and shows us how that works. And it's got stuff with Knights of the Ren, and it introduces all these Jedi who are running around part of Luke's school, and just like, it's like one of the biggest canon swings in the comics, and I don't understand how it got kind of like, go ahead and do that 4 issues. No big
like,
deal.
If it's a docuseries, it's like episode 4, Kylo Ren comic goes hard, and it's just 45 minutes on.
Anyway.
I love it.
Yeah, this is my version of Homer Simpson, drunk in that episode of The Simpsons who won't shut up about the Blue Man Group. The Rise of Kylo Ren comic book is my Blue Man Group.
Hey, pod racing is mine. So.
Yes. All right. Any other thoughts about this question or dream stories, Jennifer?
No, Star Wars is making my dreams come true, and so it's kind of nice. I feel like every time we chat, it's like, oh, there's a new thing I really am happy that is coming to life. So yeah, thank goodness for the creators.
Yeah, good time to be a Star Wars fan indeed, and a good time to be a Jedi fan with the Acolyte coming. Because even if it's hard on the old Jedi, it's gonna be a lot of good Jedi storytelling. Ken, any other dream stories before we take a quick break?
No, I a couple more that I'm like, yeah, maybe just keep those to yourself.
we have some secret ones too. Yes, we'll reveal someday. But for now, we're going to take a quick break and back in a moment with another great question. And we are back. This question is also Jedi related and comes to us from patron Bell on Patreon. Thank you, Bell. Bell says, "Hi, ForceCenter. Say Revenge of the Sith after Mace versus Sheev didn't happen because Mace won. The consequences of that can be speculation for later cues. And some Jedi decided to leave the Order, either to just get out of the business, reconnect with the Force, etc. I'm taking the easiest answer off the board as an example for you. Anakin decides to go be a house husband for Padme, and they live happily ever after. Well, Jedi-wise, who goes? Who stays? Does Obi-Wan open a Dex's Diner franchise on Pantora? What about the clones?" A lot of interesting thoughts, and I know for myself, I'm not going to be able to help it. I'm going to put Anakin back on the table. I'm going to discuss that as well. But Ken, where do you go with this? Of if that Mace Sheev fight went the other way, what Jedi might have selected a different path?
It's hard to be narrow focused on an answer, and Obi-Wan, I think goes into business. Maybe like a space food truck with Dex could be good, but I'm just thinking about this moment too of all right. So Sheev's defeated, arrested, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to go into the weeds on that, but if he's cut down and actually killed, like then you still have a bunch of problems. And even if the war ends, you're still going to have some separatist leaders being like, hey, but we still have some grievances, so let's try to work. There's so many delicious, wonderful things to talk about. So Bell's question sends my mind in that direction. But as far as, like, let's say it's settled, let's say it's kind of over. Let's say, does this happen? Does Order 66 start in some ways? I don't know, not the timing on the actual what we saw. I think you might get some Jedis taking some time out. I think maybe some, not brash vows, but I think some vacations. I think Mace needs a vacation. I'd force him to go, like just kind of get on out of there. I think Yoda sticks in and wants to lead him through, but I think there's, I don't have an entire list of Jedi in front of me, but it's that are coming to mind. But I could see them all taking a collective breath and needing to reevaluate. And maybe there would be some, we have Barriss Offee at this point is in prison, as we've now learned, and kind of already knew that she was at least there. But like maybe Shaak Ti is like, you know what? Upon thinking about things, this isn't the way it was supposed to be. Ki-Adi-Mundi maybe being like, I was wrong. I'm shamed. I've got to go deal with this. I've got to go talk to myself. I'm just thinking of those generalities of what would happen.
Yeah. Jennifer, what's your big picture reaction to this?
I love it. Immediately, I started thinking about Kit Fisto, what his life would be like. And I just was envisioning him going to a beach planet. And becoming like, when you go to these like beach towns, like there's the one guy who's like everyone knows, super friendly, like is always at the shack having lunch. Maybe he does whatever the Star Wars version of surfing is. He becomes a surf instructor. And so then I was like, well, what beach planet would he go to? Scarif, Niamos, right? So I was like, okay, maybe he goes to Niamos and everything is great. And then somehow Palpatine returns And then he sees the shore troopers or whatever. And then Andor's on the beach and we have a crossover.
I love that you just made this dark version of Kit Fisto's summer beach party that goes dark.
Yeah.
I like where you took that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're watching Andor get arrested by a KX droid, and you cut over there, and Kit's like glasses, smiling, drinking, and it's just like, what's happening here? Unlike Quinlan Voss, having watched The Phantom Menace on the big screen again, it's like I'm going to accept that that's Quinlan Voss on Tatooine, but you're not even winking at Qui-Gon. You're not even. I know it was all done after, but I still got a laugh out of that.
There's no one friendly to the Republic besides Quinlan, who we all saw. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Kit Fisto just hanging out, listening to the relaxing music of Bimmy Juffet. I think would be the Star Wars name of that musician.
Wasting away in the Amosville.
Oh, I think it'd be a lot of fun, but he wouldn't go back home
soul.
or anything. You know, I think he'd
Glee
go
and
to
some,
another place.
No.
This is such a fun alternate history to think about, and I can't stop myself from getting in the weeds because that's what's juicy to me about it. How did Mace win, right? So maybe Mace just kills Palpatine before Anakin even gets in the room. That's I think in that respect, you know, I think Mace and Ki-Adi-Mundi and a lot of the kind of crusty hardliners in Jedi would double down. They would say, hey, look, it was scary. It was bad. Got us into a war. It's shameful that we didn't sense that he was a Sith. He hit it well. But you know what? In the end, it all worked. The Jedi got there. We stopped the Sith Lord. Their oppression never returned to the galaxy. And hey, when Qui-Gon waltzed in here with all that BS about a Chosen One prophecy, we were right when we were grumpy about that. Anakin didn't do jack.
Yeah.
If Mace had successfully himself killed Palpatine, and that was kind of the end of it, a couple other burbles, but they end the war. The clone, the Republic, you know, maybe Masamita gets pushed out.
Right.
The clones get decommissioned. They got, you know, they're all gainfully employed on, you know, galaxy infrastructure, rebuilding everything that was smashed in the Clone Wars. In that world, Mace and Ki-Adi are doubling down on the mistakes of the Jedi Order, I think. And Yoda's no. And what members walk away in that situation is really interesting, where like, okay, the leadership besides Yoda mostly thinks this all worked out. Not too bad. And what Jedi would break and go, no, though, that this is, we messed up bad for it to even get this close.
Because like, how do you analyze a victory and tear down your victory, right? That's a tough thing to do. We won, we did it, and we all maybe can fall to that sometimes. Yeah,
and then there's a whole great fun in the weeds of like, what if Mace backs down, right? When Anakin's saying like he must stand trial, and Mace has the very great, morally complex, he has control of the courts, which I think Mace is right, but then it causes Mace to parrot the same line that Palpatine said about killing Dooku, which, you know, I think convinces Anakin like the Sith and the Jedi aren't that different, and I need the Sith right now. So, you know, but Mace is right, I think, canonically, that Palpatine does have control of the court. So if Mace was like, but you're right, Anakin, that isn't the Jedi way, let's arrest him.
Right.
And it's this big galactic show trial of Sheev manipulating everything, going, it was the Jedi. And it's a big HoloNet display. And he's of course, you know, the Sith. These wackos are accusing me of being some ancient monster from the past that probably wasn't even real. A Sith Lord. What's that about? And he totally gets off. Did the Jedi, does Mace just go rogue and cut his head off on the courtyard, you know, steps?
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, there's a gag order put on Palpatine during his trial, and he won't follow it. he just gives press conferences in echoey chambers afterwards.
Yep,
I'm being prosecuted. This is wonderfully juicy, Bell. This is a great question.
It really is,
and I'm sure there's more in your thoughts. But even Jen, you brought up with the Kit Fisto thing. It's like you could play off these different space-time continuums here of Mace shows up and says, "You're under arrest, Chancellor." And Palpatine's like, "Yeah, yoink, you got me." And then you could follow all the Jedi, Agent Kohler and Kit Fisto and why am I drawing the blank? The other one of they survive. They're not cut down by Palpatine, so you could follow them and what their lives are.
Oh yeah, Sassy Tin. However,
Sassy Tin,
Sassy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's Sassy from now on. Sassy Tin.
Sassy Tin.
Sassy Tin.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, I think no matter what happens, even if Palpatine is defeated, there's a bit of chaos because he's still the government's all still messed up. Now the government just doesn't have a head. Masamita would be trying to get power and keep it rolling. There is the implication that we had fun talking about with Tales of the Empire that the Inquisitor program's already kind of rolling and ready to go, right? Yep. So does the Grand Inquisitor go public, you know? Yep. Do Jedis just start getting murdered in the streets? So I think regardless, it's not a win. And to the point of Bell's question, I do think some Jedi would walk away. I do maybe Depa Billaba. Certainly I think Quinlan Voss, I think, who's been maybe even like an older Jedi like Opa Rancisis is like, we've been doing it wrong. I'm breaking off and I'm starting a different kind of Jedi Order. Like, is there a schism in the Jedi? You know,
we're gonna be a third-party candidate Jedi. Okay,
he's gonna slither away and start a new school. Yeah, I think Obi-Wan is just. I think Obi-Wan is so pure of heart. He believes in the core of the Jedi.
Yes.
And I think he's one of these guys. I think Obi-Wan's like, hey, if the neighborhood starts getting rocky, the last thing you do is move out. You stay there and you try to help. I don't think Obi-Wan's going anywhere.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think there's a belief. More meals at Dex, without a doubt. More time for food, but yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jennifer, do you have any thoughts about specific Jedi who might walk away from the Order and what they get up to beyond beach parties?
No. I think I just had fun with Kit Fisto. I could not even imagine where the others would go. Part of me just thinks that they would just stay. But yeah, this is a really fun question, and it makes me want to see the what if version of this in Lego Star Wars.
No, it means
would be open to that.
It's a hard one. It's a sad one, but it is. I love the complexities of it. You know, that Anakin made the wrong choice. Period. But what's the way out of this difficult situation where Palpatine does have control over all the levers of legitimate government?
The trial of Palpatine is a delicious what if episode. There you go.
Yeah.
That's one I can follow.
Yeah, let's do that. Ian McDermott's still doing voiceovers.
There you go.
Yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Ken?
No, I love this stuff. What ifs? I always say what ifs are really fun. I just sometimes think they're weaponized, not just in Star Wars, but in fandoms overall. But this is what keeps you up at night in a fun way as a Star Wars fan. Like, what if this happened? What if this butterfly wing flapped? And what if Kit Fisto retired and went to Neomus and had pizzas all day? This is great.
Yeah, I mean the prequel trilogy and Revenge of the Sith in particular it's just a glorious, a Shakespearean old Greek tragedy where you can have debates about where is the moment where there was no turning back. And I think the true power of a tragedy is how much we think about the beauty that could have been had the mistakes not been made. And I love, I see memes all the time of, the Anakin and Padme playing with the twins on the beach, and Uncle Obi-Wan is there, and many times in this art they're all in bathing suits, which is a whole other part of it. But I think that's part of what makes it such a successful tragedy, that it's so fun to think about what if Padme had gotten through to Anakin and he just walked away, and the kids being raised by their parents and Uncle Obi-Wan. That's beautiful. It's beautiful to think about. All right, that is it. Those are our two big Jedi questions. Thank you, Belle. Thank you, James Pasqualucci. Thank you, everyone who has asked questions on the Patreon. That is it. Ken, you want to take us home?
Yeah, we are the Force Center podcast feed and the Force Center show. We're available on social media at Force Center Pod. That includes Instagram, Facebook page is Force Center Podcast. We're here on YouTube. If you're watching, hey, consider subscribing. If you're listening on the podcast version, you probably know where to find us. But if you want to take us with you in a podcast form, we're on Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. We have the shop tab. Even if you're not a paid supporter, you can pick up our 007 Center episodes on Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. More on the way. They're there. Follow me at Cat Napzok or go to my website, catnapzok.com, for more information and other things on there, including a shop tab as well. Jen, where can they find you?
You can find me on all the social media sites for the most part at Jennifer Landa or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go, Joseph. For you and your thoughts, including maybe you could do one of your newsletter, your blog things of just the trial of Palpatine. Just put it all there.
Yeah. So look forward to my fan fiction.
Yeah.
Trials of Palpatine. That would be fun. Yeah. You can find me on most social media, as Jennifer said. Yeah, I'm not on that X too much here anymore. You can find me all the places at Joseph Scrimshaw. And you can follow my website, josephscrimshaw.com, which has links to upcoming screenings of short films like The Nightmare Adorable and that blog that I'm writing every week about creative adventures. That blog is called Finish Your Monsters, and detailing some of the adventures as I work on a feature film, all sorts of stuff like that on that website, josephscrimshaw.com. Thank you all for the great questions and the thoughts and all that great stuff. We have answered the cues of the Force.